Hello and welcome to another Lewis art video. Now this one is slightly different to the others because what I usually do is I edit the videos down, put music over the top, and then sort of cut out a large proportion of the process. So basically for this one what I've done is I've pieced it all together, every clip that I recorded, and put it all together, and now I'm going to just basically talk through and over the process with you. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to think about the composition. This is a painting that I got from a sketch at Northam Burrows. At the Burrows there is some steps that lead down to the beach. They're quite wonky, weathered battered by the sea, and I wanted to sort of do a canvas where it felt like you were walking into the picture, onto the steps down to the beach. So that was quite important that I had this perspective where it just sort of led in. So what I'm trying to do with the sky, as you can see with the stripes there, is I'm trying to keep parallel to the outside right side. Outside, if you look at the triangle at the bottom, the right hand side of what will be the steps, I'm trying to keep that sort of parallel angle to it. But I use monotone covers all, so that's the majority of the paints that I use. I also have started to switch over a little bit to Cobra, which is slightly different, but there's a better variety of colours there, really, to be honest. So I've sort of started to just push towards that. So I started buying from Graph City back in January 2017, so it's quite a long time now. And the sort of colours that I like to use are Azure Blues, Ultramarine Blue, Riviera Blue, Lagoon Blue. Cobra do a really nice one called Zafiro. It's that sort of, seagull. Those sorts of colours. Cadmium Yellow, Dare Orange, Signal Red, Riviera, Lagoon, Kiwi Light, Grasshopper Green, Milk Coffee, Chocolate Brown, Dark Grey Neutral, Light Grey Neutral, Signal White. I tend to have a couple of whites. Right, okay, well, as you can see, I've kind of gone heavy in on different colours, and then slowly but surely I start to just take them away again. I tend to do this. I tend to try and get the sort of strong colours in. I had an idea for a really sort of stormy picture to start with, and I didn't really get it right. And so gradually over time what I do is I sort of build up and add these layers on top of layers on top of layers, because I'm trying to get some sort of depth going on there, but it doesn't really work. And then gradually I've put too much on, and then so I have to sort of pull quite a lot back. What I do like, what I tend to do a little bit more of in canvases now, is that sharp blue in the corners. I quite like that, and it works here because I'm trying to keep that parallel line, as I said, with the outside right of the steps. So that's what I'm trying to do there. So the Northern Burrows, but it's sort of at the sort of far end of Westwood Ho beach, and it's just basically a very large sandy beach, and but also got that sort of wall of pebbles. Very nice, very, very pretty down there. Lots of walks and trails. Very sort of grassy coastal plain, and it's sort of at the mouth of the Torrage estuary. Been there several times, sketching and things, and so that's where this composition has come from. And yeah, it's it's basically my interpretation of Pebble Ridge and the steps at Northam Burrows going down to the sand and the sea. So at this stage, I'm really battling with these clouds. I kind of go in with an idea of what I want, and like I said, I had this idea of a sort of a moody, stormy sky, and then as it goes on, I start to kind of get a little bit sort of like frustrated with that and the build-up of the clouds, and then eventually I just take them. I'll start to pull them back a little bit more, and I do that by using punching the blue back into the clouds, which is quite a nice effect and something that I really enjoy doing. And if you think about all that colour that we started off with, you can sort of see here I'm basically eradicating the whole lot, very very sort of heavily spraying over the top with this more creamy sort of creamy white. This effect that I use in the bit of card, different sort of edges to give you sort of a feel of different clouds. There you can see I sort of just turn it so that I've got not just the same shape running through. It's quite useful to have a bit of card, and normally it's got 2 or 3 sides of sort of edges, so that I can just turn it and try and get something going spontaneous. I treat my spray paint more like a painting, I think, than a spray paint project. By that I mean I tend to, as you would with painting, sort of working at a painting, working into the canvas more, building up your sort of layers of paint and things. And with spray paint you don't actually need to do that. If you can be quite cut and dry about what you want and get on with it and just do it. And I probably waste quite a lot of spray paint because I choose to do it this way. But you know, it just seems to be the way that it works for me. But you know, I think spray paint lends itself to these clouds, these sort of misty clouds, because obviously, you know, water droplets are clouds, and spray paint is basically just droplets of paint. So kind of makes sense to me. So here I am cutting back in with the blue now. So that's something that I like to do, to punch the blue back through. But with this, I just got pulled right back in. At this point, I'm sort of thinking, that's quite nice. I quite like that there, and I'm like, leave it alone. Oh, now you've made it into an odd-shaped cloud, and so that sort of thing goes on a lot with me. Frustrating. I sort of do a bit, and then I think that's nice, and then I go, that's not nice, and what is that? That's not what a cloud would look like, but I keep persevering with it. At this point, you know, it started raining. It's all a bit grey, and getting a little bit frustrated. Kind of, if you think back to the colours that were on the front of this painting, and now think to where it's got to. You know, I've worked my way through, and not necessarily in a positive way, just kind of battled on and thought about it. And what I sort of thought is, actually, I'd like a little bit more blue here. And so that's what I've done, but now I've got to make the clouds work again, because I don't think they do quite work here. So I'm adding a slightly lighter blue just to try and tone it, and just to create a bit of interest, a bit of depth to it. But at this stage I'm not happy with the clouds, and I'm sort of thinking I've got to sort of pick them back out and build them, and very often you get the clouds building up across from Westward Ho. So I've kind of got this in mind, that that's where I was going with it, that are thicker in that left hand side of the canvas, heavier on the left hand side, and then dropping in diagonally, you know, parallel with the outside ridge. So I've got this in mind still, and I'm trying to work at it, but it can be frustrating. sometimes I think I should have the clouds in mind, and sometimes I do, and then other times I think I just see what naturally evolves, and then end up using an awful lot of spray paint, spending quite a lot of time on it. So there you can hear the rain on my lean-to. Now I'm just trying to add some highlights to the clouds, give them that bright edge. So I'm kind of thinking that the light side is on the right of the canvas, the darker side is on the left. But you can see the sheet that I used to protect the wall behind, wind's picking up. It's pretty grey, pretty heavy now, the rain. And really I should stop and just take a moment, go and make a cup of tea, that sort of thing. Well, I get this kind of drive to just, look at that, that's a shocker. I get this kind of, I'm really selling this, I get this kind of drive to keep going, just to keep pushing, push. You know, every painting is a lesson. Every painting is part of the learning curve, and there are some things that I'm starting to see here, and I'm thinking, actually, I like that. I like the sort of the difference in the top and the bottoms of the clouds, and that's what I've got to add a bit to, and being a little bit loose with it. Oh, look, I just chuck a bit of spray on there. Whatever, doesn't matter. So anyway, that's a bit of a jump. Unfortunately, there was a section where my camera had run out of battery, and I was just persevering going on. So basically what I've done there is I've added the sea across there. I got to a point that I was happy with the clouds, and then I've sort of jumped in with the sea. And when you're doing this spray paint, it's like layers. It's really hard to go back to the clouds once you've done the sea, because often you try and spray a little bit at the bottom and it impacts on the whole sort of setup, and it just doesn't look right. So I tend to go in layers. I try and get the sky done and the clouds done, and then I do the sea, and then once I've done the sea, I'll step on and then do the next layer and the next layer, moving down the canvas. And this is an interesting one because the colours in the sea there is quite straightforward, and what I did previously with the last painting that I did was I really messed up on the sea. There was a point, and it was about 20 minutes in, where it was beautiful and I was like really pleased with it, and then I just did a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more, and then before I knew it, I'd kind of wrecked the whole thing, and I actually put the canvas away, left it for a while, and then came back to it when I sort of felt I could. You can see the blue down the centre. That's the steps down onto the beach, the pathway onto the beach that I was talking about. And again, if you look at the waves there, I've learnt a bit of a lesson from the previous painting that I did, and that was not to push my luck. When you got it, you've got it right. And the copper greens that I was using on this one just worked really nicely. So here I've tipped it on its side, because basically I'm going to start working on there's a stencil for the steps, and I'm going to start working on the bottom of the canvas. For the pebble effect, I started by basically spraying out drips of paint from the can. It's a bit tricky this, because you have to sort of get the right pressure on the cap and just sort of squeeze it in. So yeah, that's what I'm attempting to do here, and every now and then I press too hard, get a big spray of white, but it doesn't matter, because there we go. It doesn't matter, because all adds, in the end, it all adds to the effect. You'd be doing something like this, and there was one canvas I was doing where basically it had gone wrong, and so I started doing this, and I wasn't happy with the effect, so I went to wipe the paint off to start again, and I spread the paint with some board, with some card, I think it was, and it sort of pulled the pebbles and made them look like they were running. They were being pulled, and they were being pulled out to sea. It looked fantastic. So it was a complete accident, but it sort of worked quite well. So I love these accidental sort of discoveries. They make a real, they really add to the sort of tricks that you can do and the bits and pieces that you can do with the spray paint. You can hear that bird in the background. I think he's warning its friends that there's loads of cats around, because they're always killing birds in the garden. It's horrible. Sort of go out in the morning and first thing you come across is a dead bird. Thanks, cats. But there you go. I don't know why, but I just thought it'd be an interesting switch if one day you stepped outside your house and there's a massive bird with a dead cat in its mouth. That'd be novel. This top that I'm wearing is old now. I've had it for a long time, and that's the same with the tracksuit trousers, actually, back from my sports coaching days. Eventually they've kind of become my painting clothes, and I've actually got really good at putting on my painting clothes when I'm painting. I used to be really bad at it, particularly in the evenings when I had my sort of garage studio, because what I would do is I'd have old clothes on and I'd be spray painting away, and then I'd go in and have a shower and stick my pyjamas on, and then I'd think, I'll just pop out and have a look at my painting again. And so I'd go back out, and then of course I'd start spray painting in my pyjamas. So there was a period of time where all my pyjamas were covered in spray paint as well. So I stenciled out these pebble shapes in advance. I think I've got 2 sets there that I use so that alternate, so that it's not too uniformed. Bit of sponge just to sort of break the pebbles up as well, and give them that sort of textured look. I don't test run these. I basically just get the canvas and go, and sometimes that's a really bad idea, because you end up sort of really fighting your way through something, whereas actually if you'd have done maybe a few smaller canvas test runs, or an A4, or bits of card or something, then I'd have saved myself quite a lot of bother when it came to actually getting it right on the canvas. But I also like the fact that it's accidental and coincidental, and sometimes things just appear because you're doing it in the moment, and that's actually part and parcel of it. Now I like these pebbles a little bit more because they were slightly uneven, so it gave quite a nice feel. So I'm sort of now just sort of with the end of a brush there, just trying to work in some shapes and patterns, just to again just break it up a little bit whilst it's still wet. And why am I doing that? Is it a technique that I've done before? Absolutely not. No, I'm doing it for the first time, and I'm on the canvas, and I'm actually sort of thinking, oh, it's all right. It's quite nice. It's got quite a nice effect to it, and I'll sort of pile it on, and in a minute I'll spray all over the top of it again, because that's what I tend to do. So it's just basically just cut stencil, and I've sort of mapped out the steps. They're not even, they're quite wonky as it runs down, and so that's what I'm doing, and then I'm just trying to get the right colour tone and things into place, and it takes quite a lot of time and play, and it was quite flat here, and I sort of started thinking about how I could adjust it and bring it all back out. As I started doing these canvases, I started wanting to paint more, and I felt the need to kind of get painting. It's not that spray paint, doesn't do the job, and there was definitely things about spray paint that I really love to do, but I sort of started hankering towards sort of getting in there with a paintbrush to create effects, to get working into the canvas, and that sort of inspired me to think about doing some oil painting, and what I really wanted to do was started to formulate this idea that I could do some plein air painting, and then maybe see where that takes me, and then bring that experience back into my spray paint again, to see where it would it help with composition and building and effects. Certainly I think with spray paint, I think sometimes it feels quite flat, and things like shade and sort of just texture and changes in tone and things of different bits and pieces, it's quite difficult to do. And I'd quite like to make a spray paint canvas that was really painterly. I think that would be good. So I've got this idea that I'm going to start doing plein air painting. So at some point I'll make a series where that's what I'll be doing. For me, it very much was my lockdown experience. The walks to local areas, for exercise, photos, sketching, that sort of thing, whilst there, just sort of, and the painting to sort of keep me sane. When I think about what it meant to me, I think it meant, with Lundy Island in particular, sort of Lundy Island is isolated, which is how I felt a lot through periods of lockdown. And I think we all have, in a way. We've all been shut away from our friends and family, so sort of Lundy sort of represented that sort of lockdown experience. Lundy being that isolated place, and it kind of just reflects, because you stand there and you can look out to Lundy, and it's sort of isolated, but it's also a central part of the North Devon coast. There's nowhere on the North Devon coast, from sort of Hartland all the way around to Baggy Point, sort of Woolacombe and that side, and Croyd, where you can't see Lundy Island. It's there, so it's always in mind, even though you can't get to it. And I guess that's where I was trying to take it, in terms of thinking about my experience of lockdown. My family always in mind, but we couldn't get there. You can't get to see people, and in a way that's Lundy Island, isn't it? It's out there, it looks great, but you can't get to it unless you risk your life on the Oldenburg, which is the rustiest old boat I've ever seen. Or you can go in a helicopter, actually, I think now, which is quite nice. Just try and get a bit of interest and texture going on there in the sort of in the waves at the front there, because obviously they're closer together, they're crashing through, you'd have more white, and it'd be running on there onto the beach. So that's what I've tried to do. So here I am now, just adding in Lundy Island. Often what I do is a couple of tones on there, a couple of colours on there, just to sort of make that a little bit, give it a little bit of depth to that. And again, there I've extended the length of the island. It's not quite the right shape now, but I didn't worry too much about that throughout any of the Lundy Islands, because I think it was more symbolic. That's Lundy Island out there. It is. It doesn't have to be the exact shape. It doesn't, because no disrespect to Lundy Island, but we know what it is because it's there. So I put the blue on, and now I'm sort of putting over the green over the top of it. Shaky hands, and there you go. That just sort of changes it. Spread it through a bit. And I've put Lundy Island in its place. Isn't always exactly where it should be, either in some of these paintings, but again, it's a bit of artistic license, because it's just symbolic of Lundy more than it is the exact Lundy Island shape and distance and location and so on and so on. I don't worry about that, and I've always sort of said I'm not really into photorealism, because if I was into photorealism I'd take photos, and I'm not that good an artist anyway, so nothing's ever going to look exactly as it would in a photo, but why would you want that? So it's always got my sort of my sort of twist to it, and that tends to come across in a way more sort of like illustrative, I think, cartoonish, I guess you could say, maybe, I don't know, it's sort of, it's got something that's, I don't know, a bit more sort of fantasy about it rather than real. That's how I sort of see it. And I'm sort of happy with that effect. It's sort of storytelling, isn't it? I'm basically telling a story. It's a flat canvas, it's a white canvas, and I'm trying to bring something to life within it. And so, whatever I produce, however it looks in the end, I've got to be happy with that, because that's just basically what it is. It's my interpretation of something. So I've jumped it on just a little bit here. It was quite a slow, sort of fiddly task, yeah. So this bit was pretty much just applying layers. Get a bit of spray paint on the card, get a bit of spray paint on the brush, and then put it on. Absolutely ruined the brushes, by the way, but I think it was worth it for the end result. You can sort of see the effect that I'm going for there now, and it's starting to work as we sort of move along, which is great. And yeah, I was quite pleased with it, really. And then finally it was just starting to form the shapes, so the pebbles, outlining them as well, just to draw out some of those pebbles as we went. And actually what I've done there is I've switched to acrylic. Basically because it just kind of spreads on a little bit easier. So then as I sort of neared the end, I started to outline the steps as well. Look at that for a steady hand. That's pretty impressive actually for me, because my hands are well shaky. So getting any sort of line in is pretty good, I've got to say. Oh, gone wrong. So there you go. It's quite a marathon of a video, really, when you look at it. But it is warts and all. It's the process. It's everything going into this one. So there you go. And there's the final piece finished, and I'm quite pleased with it, to be perfectly honest. It sits well with the rest of the series, and yeah, I'm happy with that, and hopefully you got a little bit of enjoyment out of this video. To be honest, if nothing else, I think you could play this whilst trying to sleep and you'd be out cold in 10 minutes tops. So if nothing else, it's good for that. But thanks for watching. Feel free to comment, like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can follow along with other videos when they come out. Thanks a lot. Bye.